Hi, welcome to the first lesson in my series of Learn VBA by Simple Quizzes. What I'm starting with is just a plain Excel workbook. Now, if you're going to do this course, you need to be comfortable with Excel in its normal view, but you don't need any other skills. And the course is easy enough for kids aged from about 9 or anybody else. So this is just an ordinary workbook. I've stuck the course summary on here in case you ever want to refer to it, but the whole idea is that you just follow the course through, and at the end of that you'll have a lot of skill and you can then look at more advanced courses. So this is an ordinary Excel worksheet. I haven't done anything to it. Ordinary Excel workbook, and this is the normal boxy view that we get. Now, behind the boxy view is a VBA view, which is a bit like a Word document, an Explorer. So to get from this view to the other one, I'm going to press Alt and F11. And this is a sort of Explorer view, and this is going to be like our Word document. So I'm going to right click on this box, and I'm going to insert a module. And a module is a sort of Word document where we type in code. Now, we always call the elements that we're doing subs. So I'm going to do sub quiz 1, we'll call it. And then open and close brackets. Now we won't meet the open and close brackets for a while. You just have to put them in each time. And I have the cursor between the start and the finish, the sub and end sub. So the first thing I'm going to do is to do message box MSGBOX and then bracket and in inverted commas hello. And what that will do is display a message box that says hello. Now with the cursor somewhere inside the quiz, to make it run I press F5 and it just pops up a box that says hello. So that's how we talk from the program to the user. Now, the way to use this is to try everything a little bit at a time. So I would stop now and make sure you've got that bit working before you do anything else, and keep that up all the way through the course. The next thing I want to do is to ask you your name. Now, I've got to write down somewhere the things that you tell me. So I keep sort of little mini whiteboards. This is just a representation of them, and one of them is called my whiteboard where I'm going to put your name. So I'm going to call the whiteboard my name. If you tell me your name is John, I'm going to write it down on my name whiteboard. If you later tell me your name is Peter, a different user during the program, well then I'll write Peter down. So I call it my name, the whiteboard, and it'll have different values at different times in the program, and that's a variable. So let's go back to the quiz. If we do Alt F11, this is the VBA view. So onto my board called my name, my board for writing names on, I'm going to put input box, what is your name? So input box is to ask you, oops, let's invert commas off. Input box is to ask you a question and then put it onto the mini whiteboard I've called my whiteboard for putting names onto. Okay, so let's just run that. Hello, what is your name? Let's say my name is Peter. And all that's done is written Peter onto my whiteboard for putting names on it. Now, maybe you want to say hello. So I want to say message box. Nice to meet you. And that's going to say nice to meet you, nice to meet you. And I want to say the name that's on my mini whiteboard. So, and the contents of my name whiteboard. So that's going to say NICE space TO space and so on. and then and that's going to do whatever's written on my whiteboard for names. So let's do F5 and try that. Hello, what is your name? I don't know, Joe. Nice to meet you, Joe. Okay, now with the cursor somewhere in the subroutine, I press F5 to make it run. Hello, what's your name? Fred. And this time it says, nice to meet you, Fred. Now again, stop the video and make sure you've got all of that working. Now, next thing we want to do is to ask you a question. So, when I ask you a question, I'll need somewhere to put the answer. And so I've got a whiteboard called my whiteboard for writing answers on there. And I'm going to ask you what the capital of France is. If you say Paris, I'm going to write Paris on a whiteboard. If somebody else uses the quiz and they say London, I'm going to write London on a whiteboard. And so on and so on. So it will have different things on the whiteboard as different users run the program. That's my whiteboard for writing answers on. So let's go back to the quiz. Oops, to F11 to the quiz view. So on my whiteboard for answers, I'm going to write whatever you tell me in response to input box of what is the capital of France. Okay, so let's F5 that. Hello, what's your name? Fred. Nice to meet you, Fred. What is the capital of France? Paris. And that's now got Fred written on the my name whiteboard and Paris written on my whiteboard for holding answers. Okay, on the my answer whiteboard. Simple. Now, we need to see if that's right or not. So, we're going to say if my answer equals Paris, inverted commas, P-A-R-I-S, then what will we do? Well, if it's Paris, I'm going to tell you that the answer is right. So we'll say message box, correct. Or else, message box, wrong. And that's the end of doing the if. So this bit here is if it's Paris, then do this, or else if it's not Paris, then do this. And to tell the program we've finished seeing if it's right or not, we say end if, because I've finished saying if it's right or not. Okay, so let's just run that. Hello, what's your name? Joe. Nice to meet you, Joe. What is the capital of France? Avignon. Oh, got it wrong. Let's try it again. F5 to run the program. Hello, what's your name? Alan. Nice to meet you, Alan. What's the capital of France? Paris. And that's the basic quiz structure. So what I suggest is you stop and do 2 or 3 of these and just make sure it's all working, because there's a lot of little steps in here and it's best to become proficient with the little steps. So I'm going to tidy this up a little bit by putting comments in. Now you put a comment in by putting an apostrophe, and then maybe make some thing to attract user attentions. And this is the welcome. Okay. Now when I'm finished the welcome, then I'm going to do the first question. These comments don't do anything, they just make the code readable, especially when you go back to it later. Okay, and I'm probably going to do the second question. So obviously I could do some copy and paste here, but I want to emphasize the steps, so I'm going to type it in manually. Now, VBA ignores capitals and small letters, so you'll see when I've typed in message box, it's put it into that format, but I was just typing it in mostly with small letters. With this, because it's something that I'm using, it's not a reserved word, so it's just kept whatever capitalization I put into the word. So, second question, I'm going to use the same mini whiteboard. So my answer, whiteboard, I'm going to write onto it whatever you type in when you're asked what is the capital of England. And when we run that, there'll now be, should be an equal sign, shouldn't it? When we run that, that's now going to have whatever you type on my mini whiteboard for writing answers on, the variable my answer. Okay, so if what's written on the whiteboard is London, then it's correct. So I'm going to tell you that it's correct. Or else I'm going to tell you that it's wrong. And that's the end of checking the if. Okay, so one bit in the middle is what we do. We're checking if it's right or not. And then when we're finished, we say we're finished doing it with an end if. So let's run that quiz now. And let's do F5. Hello. What's your name? Bob. Nice to meet you, Bob. What's the capital of France? Paris. And what's the capital of England? Barnsley. Okay, now it's best to run the quiz a couple of times. Make sure the cursor is somewhere within the quiz and press F5. What's your name? Charles. Nice to meet you, Charles. What's the capital of France? Ypres. Don't even know how to pronounce it, let alone spell it. Wrong. What's the capital of England? We'll get this one right this time. Correct. Now, that's the basic quiz structure, and you can keep adding as many questions as you want. And I'm betting you can make them even more interesting than these ones. So, for my third question, I'm going to just copy the whole of the second question. And then I'm going to change it because most of the code is the same. So, this is going to be my third question. And I'm going to say, what is the capital of? Dun, dun, dun. Ireland. If my answer equals, I think it's Dublin. Okay. Now you can make the questions about Pokemon, about a subject that you're studying, a revision session, something that will amuse your friends, and so on and so on. So let's just run that. F5 with the cursor somewhere in the program. What's your name? Dave. Nice to meet you, Dave. What's the capital of France? Paris. What's the capital of England? London. And what's the capital of Ireland? Derry. Oh, I'm wrong. Now, make sure you've done several of these quizzes and that they're all working nicely before you go on to the next video. And all I'm going to do to finish it off is I'm going to go back to the main spreadsheet view with Alt F11. And in here, I'm going to put a link to the quiz. So if I go to Insert on the top, and then Shapes, and I'm going to insert this nice buttony looking shape here, and in it I'm going to type press for quiz. Okay, I'll make it a little bit wider, and I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe make it bold. Oh. But whatever you like, it's just a button. Okay. Now I'm going to right click on that button, and to link it to the quiz I'm going to assign macro, and the macro is another name for the subroutine that we've written, for the program we've written, and I'm going to click on that and say OK. And that button is now linked to the quiz. So, hello, what's your name? Edgar. Nice to meet you, Edgar. What's the capital of France? Paris. Now, we're demanding that the user types it in properly with a capital letter. What's the capital of England? London. And what's the capital of Ireland? Dublin. Okay, and we're done. Now, to save it, I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to save it here. And I'm going to call it Quiz 1. And I'm going to save it as not an Excel workbook, because that wouldn't include the code we've typed in. A macro-enabled workbook saves the spreadsheet itself and the code that we've typed in. And then I'm just going to save that. Now, because I've done it as a demo before, it's already there. Normally you won't get this. Okay. Now, next time you load a program, you get a yellow bar come at the top asking if you want to enable macros. And you have to say yes if you want your quiz to work. If not, then you'll have to close the program, open it again, and this time look at the yellow bar. Otherwise, nothing will happen when you press the button. Okay. Now, if you don't already know me, you can get in touch with this email address here. But if you know me, you know my work and or my personal email address. Oh, didn't mean to click on that. It's meant to make it bigger. Okay, now a couple of common mistakes. Notice there's only one sheet here. Now I want to do Alt F11 to switch views. If I don't press the Alt key and I accidentally just press the F11, can you see it's inserted a chart? Nothing to do with what we're doing, it's just a different shortcut key. So we don't want that. We're just going to delete the chart. So if you press Alt F11, it takes you to the quiz view, and if you press Alt 11, it takes you back. If you accidentally press F11, it'll just stick a blank chart in, which you don't want, so just delete it. And the next most common mistake is, if I go to Alt F11, is forgetting to have the cursor in the code. So if I've got the cursor down here somewhere, and I press F5, it won't work. The cursor has to be in the code. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Now, what I suggest you do is make some quizzes up, preferably something which amuses you or is worthwhile. And then you don't need to prepare for each of the modules, just go through them. And at the end of the course, you should have a good overview of VBA and possibly be ready for a more technical course. And there are plenty of them around. Thank you very much.